And we're live. So, first of all, everyone, this is a very, very, very special podcast, special episode, if you may, to my heart, because I bring on board a person whom I truly appreciate their methodology in life, generally. The way they carry themselves, the way they talk, or the way they behave generally in certain occasions. A person whom I am very happy to bring all the way from Scotland, Edinburgh, if I'm not mistaken, who can help us unravel slash unpack a couple of misconceived notions or understandings about different cultures, different ideas, AI, being born in a place, traveling to so many different places, meeting so many different cultures. He's a person who literally jumped into a blender. The blender kept cooking, and output was Jamaal Careem. So, without any further ado, I want to do most of the listening part here because I truly want to listen. After a 5 to 6 year hiatus, I want to know, just like the audience members, Jamal, who is Jamal? If you were to introduce yourself to everyone who would love to know you.
Assalamu alaikum. It's good to see you, my friend. It's been quite a long time. First of all, my first question is Ho Chi Minh City. Is that the base now?
Is
Is
the
that the
van.
base now?
Yes, that's
MashaAllah. Okay, so يعني الدنيا ما ينفعش ولا إيه? Okay,
it is the end.
good. How's the pho? Have you tried pho yet?
Yes, I love it. I love the Ho Chi Minh one, not the Hanoi one, because they're
Right,
different.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
banh mi. If you tried the banh mi, since you know
I have
the
tried banh mi, but I don't know how authentic it is to the one you have over there. I'm sure it can't be
so
beaten.
I did, but not a big fan though. So yeah,
Okay. Alhamdulillah. No, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a long time. We spent a lot of time in university together. We did quite a lot together. Obviously, I'm sure we've both radically or maybe slightly changed. We've both either radically or slightly changed since university. But yeah, I have, alhamdulillah, I've gone through a lot since then, and it's been great. Just an introduction of myself to your audience. Myself and Abdurrahman, we met in Malaysia. UNMC, University of Nottingham, Malaysia. He was, I believe, a year above me or 2 years above me. We're not going to get into the details of the specific ages because we don't have to get into that. We can still pretend we're young.
likewise.
We were both in engineering. If you remember, I believe you were chemical engineering, right? I remember that because I remember your whole story with was it an internship at Top Glove? That was
Yes,
your epiphany, wasn't it? That was the moment,
yes.
the moment that made the man. That's what it was. So yeah, I'm from Sri Lanka. To everyone watching, I'm originally from Sri Lanka. Both my parents are originally from Sri Lanka. My dad grew up in the last colony of the British Empire. Abdurrahman, do you happen to know what that is? Fine, it's about 2.5 hours from you, I believe. 2.5 hours flight from you. The last colony of the British Empire, and that was Hong Kong. He grew up
Oh,
there. He spent 27 years of his life there. Obviously, Hong Kong at the time being a British colony, he became a British citizen, and so am I. In fact, a British citizen. I was born in Singapore though, because after Hong Kong, my dad moved to Singapore. I was there for a year. After that, we moved to India for 2 years. From India, we moved to Kuwait for 11 years. And from Kuwait, we moved to the UAE. I was based in the UAE for about 15 years, obviously a 4 year gap over there to go to Malaysia and study in Malaysia. And now I've moved to the UK. I'm in Edinburgh, Scotland, beautiful city. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind of a journey. Alhamdulillah. It's been extremely enjoyable. It's been, especially that access or that exposure, rather, the exposure to different cultures. I like to think of myself as a third culture kid. I don't know if you've heard of that phrase. That's a third culture kid, right? Where you're born somewhere, you're originally from somewhere, ethnically you're from somewhere, you might associate with a specific culture. And there are more of third culture kids in today's world. I think than ever. And yeah, that means to some degree a dissociation from culture or from hegemonic culture or kind of dogmatic culture that we find in traditional typical countries, right, apart from maybe the West, which is also kind of been eroded as well. But yeah, that's the kind of idea, kind of experience I lack, right? I don't have exposure to a culture where my parents, the people around me, my family members said, this is how we do things, this is how we go about life. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to follow this because your ancestors followed this or because the people in your country do this. My parents are much more open-minded in that sense and always have been. I grew up in that environment where my parents would essentially use predominantly one thing or one kind of metric to determine whether something is good or bad, and that would be religion, right? I think that's significantly impacted who I am, in addition to growing up in different countries and being exposed to different cultures. Because it's not just, you have extremely religious people in Egypt, in Sri Lanka, in India, in Pakistan, right? In all countries, you have people who are extremely religious, but there's a traditional or a cultural element that's tied to that religiosity, and that could have significant implications on that religiosity, right? Whereas you notice that if you look back to the traditions of Islam, something doesn't exist, but people make it exist in their culture, right? And alhamdulillah, that's something that I've not, I've really never truly experienced, right? My parents always had an answer to whatever I asked them, and their answer would be contingent on one thing: what does our religion say about this? Again, it's so that experience has kind of been, it has enabled quite a bit of fluidity between cultures for myself. I'm able to relate to so many different people. I'm able to absorb so many different cultures. I get along with Egyptians, I get along with Sri Lankans, I get along with Indians, Pakistanis, with the Brits over here, the Scots over here. I'm able to relate to them. I suppose in some aspect, that's the case for many people nowadays because of globalization and, education and the internet and, TikTok and Instagram. So there's a lot more relatability between people. It still doesn't trump the aspect of growing up as a third cultured kid, if that makes
Jamal,
sense.
I love the introduction. I love how you're putting things into context whereby you're a person who was born to Sri Lankan parents. Your parents went through their life through, especially your father being working in Hong Kong when it was a British colony back then. You being a British citizen, you traveling to myriad other countries that are quite vast when it comes to cultures and quite different. So the real term I can use is that cosmopolitan experience that you've been going through. You've, if I may put it that way, you've gone through 6 countries whom have probably impacted who you are throughout your multicultural upbringing. I really want to start off with this question. I want to fire it right away. What part of the multicultural upbringing throughout countries that you've been through helped shape you the most? And what was it exactly?
That's a great question. I was there for a year after I was born, so very minimal exposure. Although I've been back many times, I've heard about how great of a country it was from my father. I have family over there. I've been very much exposed to the Singaporean culture. 2 countries, I really can't stick to one. It would be Kuwait and the UAE, specifically Dubai. I was in Dubai for, I would say the most of my life I've spent in Dubai. So that kind of amplifies the diversity aspect, because in Dubai is just a melting pot, right? It's literally a melting pot. I make this joke with my friends, not really a joke, but I give them this kind of this metaphor over here. When you're trying to select foods in Dubai, over here in the UK, halal food is something you need to consider, right? You need to make sure that a restaurant is halal. You need to go through a verification process. And that's all fine because there are quite a few options. But in Dubai, you literally take a globe, you spin that globe, put your finger on the globe, wherever your finger lands, whatever country that is, you're likely to find food from that country in Dubai. And that's a testament to how much of a melting pot it is. And that has been significantly impactful on my life because, again, I got to switch it up. I wanted to hang out. Saturday nights would be football with Nigerians. I did some of my friends in school were Egyptian. Yeah. So I had a lot of Pakistani friends. Right? Two of my closest friends were Pakistani. And that was all in Dubai. And Kuwait was more of Khaliji culture, right? Because I went to an American school, dominantly Kuwaiti. Kuwaiti is, the Khalij, the Gulf. When I say Khalij, just for your English-speaking listeners, Khalij means the GCC, the Middle East, right? The Gulf Corporation. Kuwaitis, Emiratis, Saudis, Qataris, they're very similar. They have a lot of similarities. So the school I went to in Kuwait from grade 1 to grade 9 was an American school, but full of Kuwaitis. Teachers were all American, so I was exposed to American culture and American history. So Kuwait was mainly, I would say, the Arabization of me. I learned my Arabic over there. I would say before leaving Kuwait, I was fluent in conversational Arabic. After going to Dubai, the diversity kind of flattened that out, right? Because when there's diversity, there's also kind of a loss in culture and languages and things like that. So it kind of flattens the landscape, and everyone spoke English. So I never needed Arabic, unlike so I lost a lot of my Arabic, unfortunately. But inshallah, أتحسن وإن شاء الله I will
Sure.
try to get better and improve. And that's always been a goal of mine. Dubai was mainly that diversity, that multiculturalism, that exposure to different peoples, different cultures. So yeah, I can't decide between the two because both those aspects of my personality carry a lot of weight, right? In Dubai, I'm able to speak to some extent, again, with my limited Arabic, I'm able to speak to and understand and get along with the Emiratis or the Khalijis or the Saudis because of my experience in Kuwait. In Malaysia, I was able to connect with and speak to and joke with the Nigerians because of my experience in Dubai. Saturday night football with the Nigerians, right? So it's the same with Egyptians, right? My exposure to Egyptians in Dubai and in Kuwait as well, because there are a lot of Egyptians in Kuwait, dictated my ability to interact with the Egyptians in university. And you know that a lot of my friends in university were Egyptian, right? Although my biggest contention with them is that they insisted on not pronouncing my name correctly. For some reason, you guys have decided that Jamal sounds better than
Well, I'm of that camp. I still say Jamal though.
You're free. You're free. You're off the hook, my friend. You're off the hook. So yeah, those two countries have been significantly impactful and predominantly impactful on my life, on my outlook, on my personality.
Wow. I like how you boiled down the 6 countries to 2, given the time component. Spent most of your time in Kuwait and Dubai, if I may say. And those help shape who you are because of the vast, especially in Dubai, just like you said, a melting pot. It's the vast amount of several cultures, if I may say. If you do not want to travel around the world, I think Dubai is a very good place to go there and get a taste of what the world looks like. I always like to put it that way too, because I personally lived in Dubai for the better part of my life.
I did. Yeah, that's
I
right.
hopped on to different countries and continue my journey. I really like how you just boiled it down to 2 countries. And one thing I can take away is these 2 countries help shape who you are from a communication perspective as well, or at least the way you think when it comes to people. And this brings me to this important question. If Jamal weren't offered the luxury slash opportunity of traveling to all these places due to God knows what limitation, what's one thing you would miss about your personality now?
It's a good question. So if I didn't have the kind of lifestyle I had, or if I didn't go through the experiences I went through, what I would miss, I probably would be more grounded to a specific culture or a specific tradition or a specific group of people. Right. Again, I mean, people who know me may notice that I hang out quite often with a specific group of people, Sri Lankans or British Pakistanis, and that has less to do with my inability to hang out with different people and more to do with people who are aligned in terms of their values. Because I mean, that's what everyone kind of gravitates towards, right? We have this, especially now in the West, where we have quite a lot of white nationalism and white Christians wanting the West to become more white and wanting people like them to live next to them. There is, not to be controversial, but there is slight merit to that, that want. And I believe it's innate, right? We gravitate towards people who align with us. For me, it's never been towards people who aligned with me in terms of their skin color or their nationality or their ethnicity or their language. Obviously, I have to speak English because that's what I speak, but it's always been based on their values and what guides them in life. For me, it's my religion. For me, it's my belief in God and belief in Islam, and that's where I've gravitated towards. So if you were to flatten it out for me, if you were to say, okay, you weren't able to go to these different countries, you weren't able to hang out with these different people, I probably would be in a bit more of a bubble. I probably wouldn't be as comfortable, having a nice long conversations with my colleagues here, the Scots here in Scotland, or being able to have a nice conversation with one of my remote colleagues who's based in the US, because I wouldn't have had that kind of diverse experience, right? I would probably be a bit more homogenous. I would be in a more homogenous environment, right? Where I'd probably just be hanging around Sri Lankans, maybe South Asians. I don't know. Maybe if I double down on the Arabic and the Arabic culture in Kuwait, maybe I would just hang around Arabs. And you see people like that, right? I've seen Egyptians who are not comfortable hanging around Egyptians. They're comfortable hanging around Khalijis specifically. I've seen Arabs who are not comfortable hanging out with Arabs. They're more comfortable hanging out with Brits, for example. And not to say there's anything wrong with that, right? Everyone is life, and everyone's what they're comfortable with is determined by their experience. I'm not criticizing these people. I'm just simply pointing out the fact, and that's
And
what the reality would be like for me.
do you think age is a barrier here? So if I were to take a takeaway here, and if the audience members were to think of the same thing, where, okay, I didn't have that luxury today, and I am already way ahead and beyond my university years. I'm already a working professional. And I see this episode and I go like, I need to travel a lot more. I need to hone that skill set. I need to be a lot more open-minded. I need to have that cross-cultural understanding. Do you think age is a barrier to when you start the travel experience? So imagine Jamal were to start right now this whole journey, and you were just based in Sri Lanka ever since you're the age you are today, and you would start that journey today, as opposed to Jamal starting off while he was a very young kid and then growing up throughout these experiences. Do you think other people would still have a chance to accustom their mind to that very mindset?
I think the answer to that is quite subjective, right? And it's contingent on a number of different things. If I were to look at the people around me, let's say, take, for example, my parents, right? I might have a diverse upbringing and, been exposed to different cultures and peoples. I wouldn't say the same for my parents. Obviously, my mom grew up in Sri Lanka and she spent most of her adult life, or most of her adolescent life in Sri Lanka. She moved out when she got married to my father. She moved to Hong Kong, and her life in the Middle East has been extremely impactful on the personality she has. I would say age is a factor here, in my experience, because the earlier you start that kind of curiosity, or the earlier you start exploring different peoples, different cultures, you start traveling, you start meeting people, you get comfortable speaking to people, the earlier you start that, the easier it will be to do later on in life. And I've noticed this with the elderly folk that I've spoken to, right? They're much easier to speak to, and there's so many different topics you can speak to them if they've done it in their youth, if they've traveled in their youth, if they've mixed with, interacted with different people in their youth, right? But if they've been in a kind of, stale, monotonous environment, and they've grown up in that and they've gotten comfortable in that, I think that will impede their ability to do it later on in life. And I see that with my parents. They're not as interested in traveling as I am. They're not as interested in having, my dad maybe to some extent, but definitely not to the extent that I am. Right. I have anxiety. It's not really anxiety. I'm sorry. I don't want to belittle people with actual anxiety. But what I'm talking about metaphorically is my anxiety is that I won't be able to see enough of the world before I die. Inshallah, God will give me the ability to travel and to experience different cultures and live like that. I hope, inshallah. But my anxiety is that I will, throughout my life, I will only have touched a handful of places on the globe, such that I could probably count them on my 10 fingers. I don't want that to be the case. I really don't.
Wow.
So I'm in kind of I'm in this conundrum where everyone is saying at this point in your life, you have to start building financial habits, you have to start saving, you have to start investing. I want to start traveling. I mean, I have traveled, alhamdulillah. I've been to quite a number of different countries. I'm blessed to be able to do so, to have been able to do so. But I want to do that more, right? I want to do that more now while I'm still relatively young. I'm not going to expose my age here. I want to do that more than before I get to a point where, okay, the responsibilities start piling on and, circumstantially, I won't be able to do these things.
I like
So
how
yeah, age is definitely a factor.
the way you think in a quite unorthodox way, Jamal. And that's nothing new to you. At least me knowing who you are.
Yeah.
I like you a little bit very easily. This is the time where people are getting a little too excited about, hey, invest, hey, think about the future, about the family, about blah, 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 blah. I like how you put it in a three-worded sentence. I want to travel with a big fat smile on your face. That shows a lot. That shows a lot and speaks a lot about the person you are. Now, very important question. Have you ever felt pressured to choose an identity to play with, specifically looking at the different places you've lived, not just visited? Have you ever thought, I would need to rechange or tweak or fine tune my identity to fit in? Or was it a one size fits all identity in my way or the highway? Tell me more. Walk me through it.
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. There's a lot of nuance here, right? Just to caveat what we've been talking about so far with the fact that I would visit Sri Lanka at least once a year from the time I was very young. So while I've never considered myself a resident of Sri Lanka. I've never been considered a resident of Sri Lanka. I don't think I'll ever consider myself be able to reside in Sri Lanka long term. It has significantly impacted my personality, right? I go there every month. I've gone there every year for a month, spend time with my cousins, with my grandparents, with the people over there. And I probably would know more more about Sri Lanka than I do any other culture. So there has been a bit of pressure from, I would say, the people around me, the people in my life. I mean, my relatives, my distant relatives, my cousins. Not too much, not to an uncomfortable extent, but there has been a bit of pressure to conform to that, right? Oh, this is your country. You should learn the language. You should learn the languages. How are you gonna get a buy in Sri Lanka? 20x years I've gotten by fine. I'm not gonna reveal the second digit.
Let's how this
I'm still in my 20s, man. I'm still in my 20s. So yeah, 20x years I've gotten by just fine in Sri Lanka without having spoken the language. The people are very nice to me. Well, there's a bit more of a detailed point I want to get into. And this is not specific to Sri Lanka, but I would say it's specific. I've noticed it with mainly the subcontinent, right? So the people of I can't speak to Bangladeshis because I haven't seen this in Bangladeshis. I've seen this in Sri Lankans, in Indians, and in Pakistanis. I've also seen this in the UAE or in the Middle East, right? In the Gulf. There's this kind of inferiority complex that people from the subcontinent have, right? Where they feel like the immediate, how do I kind of say this with the nuance? When I meet someone from the subcontinent, right? Not everyone, right? This hasn't been every interaction I've had with an Indian, Pakistani, Bangladesh, an Indian, Pakistani, or Sri Lankan. But many of the times, their first instinct is to try and identify how similar you are to them. And I feel the more similar you are to them, the happier they are to dismiss you as a person. Right? Again, not everyone, absolutely not everyone, but I've encountered this significantly more than I've encountered it with other nationalities and other ethnic groups, other peoples. So again, let me break that down. You meet someone, they want to identify how similar are you to them. The more similar you are to them, obviously, with any human being, that means the more comfortable they will be with you, or you will be with that person, based on similarity, based on homogeneity, as we've been talking about. But there's also an element like, okay, just another Sri Lankan, or just another Indian, just another Pakistani. You're one of us, okay. And you see this in the Gulf, especially when it comes to the place of work, right? The workplace, where people who are similar. If you get an Arab, the Indian will treat the Arab better than he treats the Indian. If you get a Caucasian, the Indian will treat, or the Sri Lankan or the Pakistani would treat the Caucasian better than he treats his fellow Sri Lankan or Pakistani or Caucasian. I'm not asking anyone to be unfair. I'm not asking anyone to give preference to any specific nationality. That's the whole point here. It's to flatten it out. You treat someone not based on their nationality, their skin color, their accent, their languages. You treat them based on the fact that they're human beings, right? And I've noticed, I feel like psychologically, this is something that people can't do. They simply can't do. Right? A lot of people can't do. And they always have to look back to, can I talk to this person the way I can? Like, is he going to do anything about it? Okay, fine. Another thing that South Asians I've noticed always kind of pay attention to is, where are you on the hierarchy spectrum in comparison to them? Like, are you a mudir? A mudir. Okay, can I speak? Are you a boss? Are you someone who's above me or below me? And that will also determine how I'm able to speak to you. And I've noticed this significantly less than the people here in Scotland.
Let me add something into that. It's not really, from what I've seen too, it's not just with the subcontinental people. I think it's with everyone.
Right.
They would use certain parameters. They've been born or they've been taught to check out before they know how to treat a person in a certain way or two. And that is, I believe, a societally a huge complex that we're facing, because there is a label that I have to put you in. Like, there's a box that I would have to put you in order to know, how do you go about the labeling complex? This person, and so he must think that way. This person, Canadian, he must think that way.
I can only ever label anyone based on the patterns that I've identified throughout my life. The patterns that tie back to that person, their skin color, and that this is just the simple reality of human nature, right? You can only label someone or make assumptions about someone. Okay, let me reel that back. When I say label, I'm saying assume that a person thinks this way because he or she is from X country or Y country. You can only do that based on the patterns that you've recognized throughout your life. And that's why, to some extent, you look at the racism around the world, and it's absolutely disgusting. It's very evident that, there is a campaign against Muslims right now, especially in the West. It's very sad as well. But a lot of the conclusions people come to are based on the various different interactions people have with that specific ethno group, religious group, cultural group. And I'm no different. I'm a human being in that sense. When I meet an Egyptian, I will assume an Egyptian thinks in a certain way. Now, I could well be proven wrong about that. Right? But naturally, my kind of innate disposition is to think that he's Egyptian. He probably thinks X, Y, Z. Now, obviously, we shouldn't be too presumptuous about people, and we shouldn't draw parallels from, fringe examples like, oh, this one time I had an interaction with someone, therefore, I'm going to draw a parallel from that for everyone else. I'll give you an example, to be honest, and this is one that kind of, okay, so to be very frank with you, this, especially because it happened when I was young, it significantly impacted my perception of Egyptians, right? I was in class, I was in Kuwait, we were studying in school, and the teacher, it was an Arabic class, and the teacher was calling us for oral quiz. It was an oral test, sorry. And we were going one by one, and there were two people left, myself and an Egyptian. And the teacher gave us the list, like I was going to go next, but he wanted to leave class early. So he said, I'm going to go next. I said, no, but I'm on the list. He's like, no, I'm going to go next. I'm like, why? He's like, yeah, you're Sri Lankan, I'm Egyptian. And I'm like, okay. So he's like, hey, Egyptians are better than Sri Lankans. This is the thing, like, obviously, I know that doesn't represent Egyptians. I know Egyptians don't think like that in general. I know that's a fringe case, right? Quite frankly, a fringe case. So, growing up and understanding the world, I understand that Egyptians don't, it's not a blanket characterization of all Egyptians to say that they think like that, right? They don't. And again, my interaction with the Egyptians in university have been significantly contrary to that fact. But growing up, I'm at that point of contention and I would bring this up with Egyptians, and obviously they all disagreed with me, right? But in the course of that disagreement, the other point would come up where, to that extent of that polarizing, they wouldn't have opinions that were that polarizing, but there will be an aspect of pride that I would identify. Like, for example, Egypt is mentioned in the Quran. Sri Lanka is not mentioned in the Quran. I would say, okay, well, Fir'aun is mentioned in the Quran as well. I mean, again, you can't draw parallels from that, right? You can't draw a parallel from that. Again, after that, naturally, as a human being, right? And I encountered more instances than that, just that one time. It happened a few more times in my interaction. I drew conclusions about Egyptians, right? I could be wrong. I could be dead wrong. But again, it's human nature. You just simply draw conclusions about people based on the pattern recognition, based on your experience.
Wow. Drawing conclusions, making it. I just like how you broke it down, because if one thing someone can think of, imagine someone right about to get into university, or a person who's right about to jump onto the bandwagon where they go to a completely different country, explore different cultures, and treat people in a different way, or recreate themselves, just like how I like putting it sometimes, where when you travel, you're technically recreating yourself. You're exploring your blind spots and what have you. What would your advice be to them to not fall into the trap of labeling to the best of their ability and keep an open mind away from stereotypical matters that the day you have no idea who you're treating with, and stopping that ideology of the blanket stereotypical assumption of, hey, you so all. What would you tell them?
I would say on that point, to some extent, digitization has played a significant role in flattening that out, because people are seeing videos of different countries, different cultures, different peoples. They're seeing, oh, wait, hold on. The people in the Middle East are actually very nice. You have a lot of Americans and Brits in Saudi Arabia, for example, coming out and saying, oh my God, I've never met a more hospitable people than the people of Saudi Arabia. You guys have no idea. You guys back in the West have absolutely no idea. So I think digitization has played a key role, for people who are about to, go out there and travel and experience the world. That in and of itself, the fact that they're doing that is going to make them more open-minded. That in and of itself is going to make them more humble, right? And humility is something very important. I want to come back to this when we switch gears.
Talk to me about that. That's very nice. I like that you chose that word.
Yeah, I remember I watched Tucker Carlson once say that you can only ever trust someone who knows their limits, right? You can only, and this is, for me, I can't talk about how true this is. I can't talk enough about how true this is. You can only ever trust someone who knows their limits, right? And who is comfortable and has the humility to admit their limits. I'll be quite frank. I was not that person. I wanted to seem like I knew everything. I was not the person I would, try and paint myself as an expert on everything, which I'm a million miles from. And it's been a huge learning curve for me. It's like, hold on a minute, you know nothing. Like you actually, like, I'm talking to myself, like, you know nothing. You know nothing. Like, literally, this is very, very important. It's important to learn because um, that's a different gear that if I switch gears now, but there's a whole flow to that conversation about education and the workforce and, where we are right now. Let's segue that in, actually. Let's segue that in, right? We talked about education. We talked about university, right? I want people to realize that gone are the days of our parents, right? Or of our grandparents, where a university degree is the primary route to prosperity. Gone are those days. I want people to understand this. I don't think people understand it as much as they do. Gone are the days where that certificate that you have, that you spent 4 years doing, probably the skills you probably learned, if you're engineering and you're an engineer who came out of the British system, in my opinion, the best skill you would have gained from that degree was past paper practice. Past paper practice, right? In my opinion, at least my experience, right? I'm sure different people got involved in different aspects of university, which contributed to their growth and to skill building, like public speaking, for example, yourself, like societies and clubs, working with people, working on projects. I'm talking about the degree. I'm talking because these other things are not prerequisites to getting a degree. You don't need to have been social at university to get that piece of paper, which everyone tells you, oh my God, that piece of paper that's your ticket to prosperity. It's not. A bachelor's degree has become not even a minimum requirement. So people are, when I started working, I was working in the sector of education, right? I remember speaking to my boss, the CEO of the company, and he said that he calls it masteritis, where people feel like, oh man, the bachelor's didn't do well enough for me. I need to do a master's. Like, this is the master's is going to be my ticket to a job. Okay, the master's was not enough. I need to do a few more courses. Okay, those are not enough. I need to do a PhD maybe to get into employment. And obviously, these things have their pathways, like academia, teaching, research. Definitely, you can draw those pathways from education, from conventional education. But the majority of the workforce cannot, right? And this is a very important point. A very good friend of mine who's based in Saudi Arabia now, Allah Mubarak, he's a very high achieving person, right? He got excellent results, got accepted to excellent universities, right? Got fantastic grades, got scholarships and all of that. And he got interviews with the best companies, right? Engineer, this was a mechanical engineer. One of the interviews, the person said, that the interviewer asked him, he said, why should we hire you? We can take anyone from the street and train them to do this job, right? What you learned in university is not going to help you here. It's not going to help you, right? Not to a considerable extent, not in a true meaningful way. It's not going to help you. We can take anyone and train them. With enough training, they'll be able to get the job. Why should we hire you? He had a fantastic answer, and that was in every aspect of his life. And this is where this, just to caveat what I'm saying to students, I'm not saying not to focus on school and not to focus on university because of this one point, because of this one single point. So this guy went on to say that in every aspect of my life, anything that I was put into, I gave it my all, right? I performed it with excellence. This job is going to be no different to me, right? So yes, none of the things that I did maybe in high school or in university truly significantly impacts my ability to get this graduate engineering job done. But throughout my life, I've had a mentality and a mindset that I've applied in all aspects of my life, and that has gotten me through life. And this time is no different. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And for me, that is hands down a testament to ihsan, which we are taught in our religion, excellence in everything you do. But hands down, there's no, So again, kids, students, I'm not saying don't study. I'm not saying flunk your tests. I'm not saying forget about uni, forget about all of these things. But I'm saying it's not as important as you think it is. It's not as you're not as dependent on these things as you think it is, right? And everything I've done in my career, everything I've done in my career so far, my career is not very, I'm saying it as if my career is 10, 15 years. I've been working for about 6 years, right? 5 years, actually, 5.5 years. Everything I've done has been on the job learning, has been, on the job learning, experiential learning, project-based learning, social and emotional learning, everything. Right? Even what I'm doing now, I did not learn. Right now, I'm in the field of AI. I was thrown into the deep end, which I absolutely love. And I'm in the deep end. I'm kicking myself, trying to stay afloat in the midst of all these extremely technical and smart and highly proficient developers, data scientists, product managers. I'm definitely in the deep end. I'm loving it, no doubt about it, but I'm in the deep end.
How the fuck? I need to stop here. I need to stop here because this is,
Too much. I don't like talking too much.
I love it. I personally love it. This is one of the main things. So for everyone watching, one of the major reasons was going to fight Jamal if he were not to accept my invitation to come to this podcast is literally, thankfully, the segue you already took us in. So you took already the weight off my shoulder. Jamal, and let me expose it right away. You're a mechanical engineer by profession.
Yes, mechanical engineering.
University of Nottingham. Was that?
Can I just correct you there? Well, hold on a second. Very important distinction. I'm not a mechanical engineer by profession. I'm a graduate of mechanical engineering. I think there's a very important distinction to be made. Whereas you simply calling yourself a mechanical engineering on the pure merit of that certificate doesn't really, it's not, it's a bit distant from reality in terms of what, who an actual engineer is in today's world, who's someone who's been, spent years of hands-on experience. I haven't spent years of hands-on experience.
I like the distinction. So a graduate of mechanical engineering, was that an MN or a BEng? So was that a master's?
A BEng, yeah.
Fair enough. Beautiful. So you'd done your 3 years. Did you do a foundation year where you did?
I did not. I did year 13 A levels, yeah.
And so 3 years, university degree, graduated, and then you flew back to Dubai and you hopped into the education sector.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. When you say it like that, yeah, that's right.
And then you spend the better part of your career in the education sector. And then all of a sudden, I was sipping on my coffee on LinkedIn, and I find this staggering LinkedIn post saying that, hey, guys, I'm Jamal. And for those who know me, pray for me. Something around these lines. I
did not say pray for me. I didn't say pray for me.
You need it. I think you need it.
I need it. Yeah, of course. Please pray for me.
Trust me. So yeah, along these lines, of course, I don't remember it word by word, but what the vibes I got was something has been cooking with this guy. I need to know what was going on. And you took a drastic shift to AI. Talk to me.
Like the way you did that. And the post you came across, yes, granted, I'm a sucker for theatrics. It was dramatized and it was fluffed out. But yeah, I just enjoy doing that on LinkedIn. Nowadays, people fluff out getting a driver's license. So why can't I fluff out getting industries? I like to thank everyone who contributed to my driver's license, my instructor, my father. So yeah, it's alhamdulillah. Okay, so let's talk about university first, right? Because it's a bit of a journey. And by the way, I don't know what your time restrictions are, whether you have any.
Feel free.
Okay. Because this segues into a very important conversation which I would like to be the kind of takeaway notes from this discussion for anyone listening. Okay, so Kuwait, grade 1 to grade 9, American system, reasonable system of education, I would say. Certainly better than the British system. Did quite a bit of hands-on project-based learning. My final year grades were not based on an exam or a set of exams. They were based on a number of different things scattered across project-based learning, reading, tests, of course. It's not perfect, but it's certainly better than the British system which I switched to for year 10. So I moved to the UAE, Dubai, and I went to a school that delivered the British curriculum, which was purely exam-based. And I'm saying purely exam-based, right? So I never really had. So okay, what for students? Let's break this down. You're in school. You are doing your. Let's say okay. Let's forget about IGCSEs for now. Excuse me. Let's talk about A levels. You're doing your A levels, or you're about to do your A levels, right? Now your teachers, the people in school are telling you, okay, you need to choose your subjects. Choose very important subjects. What are you going to choose? And they look at my IGCSE grade. I got an A star in math. I got an A star in physics. I got an A star in chemistry. Abdurrahman, you tell me, right? Now, with grades like that in those subjects, what's the first thing that comes to your mind in terms of career pathway? A star in math, A star in physics, A star in chemistry.
Engineering, medicine.
Engineering, STEM, medicine. Maybe if you got an A star in biology, medicine, right? That's all fine. That's all good and well. So now you choose your A-level subjects. All right, I did well in these subjects. I'm going to do them again for A-level, right? There is a discrepancy between what you're good at in terms of the A-level subjects that you do or the school subjects that you do and what you will be good at. We're not even talking about enjoy right now because that's a different code to crack. We're not even talking about what you'll enjoy. We're talking about what you're good at. People always draw a parallel that if I did well in physics, in math, in chemistry, I'm most likely to do well in engineering. You might realize that that's true when you get into your A levels. So for people who went through the American system, A levels is basically grade 11, grade 12. You might realize that you do well in your A levels. And your A level results will get you a ticket to university, a good university, maybe an engineering degree or a STEM degree. And then you realize, yeah, okay, success in my GCSEs got me to success in my A levels, got me to success in university. And I'm just, my pathway is being validated and validated each step of the way. Every step of the way, I'm granted success. I'm given accolades and achievements. Like, you did well. Congratulations. Very well done. And you go through that engineering degree and you do well in that as well, a first class. And then you step out of that bubble of academia, that bubble of the industrial model for education that was developed almost 100 years ago, right? Of factory workers, classes, batches, quick education, putting people through the pipeline. And then you realize, hold on, the real world is nothing like this. The real world is absolutely nothing like this, right? And a testament to that would be the story that I told earlier about my friend who said that the engineering firm that hired him said, we can hire anyone. Why should it be you? So then graduates step out of that. They step out of that bubble of academia. They come into the world, graduated with the degree and the hat on and the energy and the enthusiasm, only to realize that they're coming into a very different world and they've been molded by that they've been molded by. And that's where the discrepancy really takes form and starts affecting students, starts affecting learners. The learners, when I was okay. Wow, I'm really going off on a tangent here. Okay, so coming back to me. So now to draw, what am I saying about all of this? I was good at math, physics, chemistry. I thought engineering was best for me. However, I would caveat that with, I still wasn't sure. And I didn't take a front seat in determining that, okay, this is what I'm going to do in a very kind of dogmatic way. Engineering. I was kind of, okay, what do? I don't know what I want to do. What should I do? I spoke to people. I did a bit of research. Research, by the way, when you research engineering or mechanical engineering, some of the first few images that pop up, Ferraris, Rolls Royces, Airbus, right? Some of these very romanticized, luxurious, nice to work at companies. And again, mainly the product development teams of these companies sit in Switzerland or in France or in the US or in the UK. So people don't even consider, I want to work in this part of the world. Is there actually any scope for this segment of engineering? So yeah, I did a bit of research. I spoke to people. Everyone told me, look, you don't know what you want to do? Do engineering. Engineers get into finance, they get into business, they get into the creative industry, they get into engineering if you want to do that in the end. It just opens up a lot of doors.
Served you well? Has that piece
Right?
of advice served you well?
Absolutely. And again, I went into university with that mindset. I would, granted, it may have impacted my potential for academic success because, again, I was half in, half out. I was like, okay, engineering, yeah, I'm doing this because I want the versatility, not necessarily because I want to double down on a career in engineering. So I was kind of half in, half out, I'll be honest with you, which I don't advise. I advise against, right, categorically. Because as Muslims, just people in general, we have to have ihsan. We have to do things in the best of our ability, regardless of the circumstances, right? Everything we do, everything we commit to the best of our ability. So I went in thinking, okay, versatile, I'll be able to do what I like after graduating. So that's my journey. So when I came out of university, I actually had an internship lined up in oil and gas, a very sought after industry of engineering, right? A petroleum company in the UAE. And I had it lined up. And alhamdulillah, I graduated 14 days before all of the lockdowns, before COVID. I remember we met when I came back for graduation. We went for Thai food at Nasuk. Some of the other brothers, yeah, that was a nice, I'll never forget that restaurant, one of the best Thai restaurants I've ever been to. Yeah, I graduated 15 days later. I graduated, got back to the UAE 15 days later, lockdown, everyone is out, remote working catalyzed. And then I contacted the person who was offered me the internship and he said, sorry, we can't take you on board right now because even our own team is not at work, they're at home. And we're trying to figure that out. Applying, trying, speaking to people, trying different things. Obviously, I had downtime, not going to lie. It was a depressing time. It was like, okay, what do I do now? Well, what am I supposed to do? 6 months, I couldn't find a job. So 6 months I was applying, speaking to people. I wasn't as proactive as I could have been, but I did try. Nothing landed, alhamdulillah. And then I spoke to a friend of mine who was and still is making waves in education. Abdul Mateen, his name is. I've always wanted for you to meet him. I think you'd enjoy a conversation with him. Anyways, he was working on a company known as Project U. And Project U, essentially, their mission was to revolutionize education, right? To change how we've been going about education. This industrial, almost 100-year-old model that's producing kind of factory workers where everyone is basically doing the same thing, regardless of your strengths, your weaknesses, your personality. You just do the same thing and you're measured by the same metrics. You're judged by the same criteria. None of the nuance is taken into consideration, and none of the diversity in personality is taken into consideration. So he really wanted to change that, right? He radically wanted to change that because he was an output of that, and so was I. So he saw the work that I was doing actually in university. If you remember, we were making a few videos. I was doing a bit of public speaking with yourself, P2R. He saw some of those videos, and he thought that I would make a great facilitator for the learners that they were working with on this. So what is Project U? Very quick, the company that I was working with for most of my career thus far. It's an organization that works with the community, works with students, works with governments to design systems and programs and curriculums that accommodate holistic learning. So when I say holistic learning, I'm talking about project-based learning and social and emotional learning, right? Which, by the way, is a key proven determinant, which are two key proven determinants to success in this AI-driven world, right? And I'll get to that in a bit with a few of the things I want to talk about. It's almost been an hour, man. Are you gonna tell me like enough already? Are you gonna be like, listen,
No.
I'm there, we're in the back.
No, I love it. Yeah. So you were talking about Project U. Just go ahead. Because to me, this I don't want to hijack the episode, but to me, this is for the most important time.
Yeah.
I want to extract as much as content and info from you, especially your story, because I know that's all going to lead to where you are right now in a room, apartment, Scotland. So so
my nice little apartment in Edinburgh. So then I joined Project U, and working with Abdul Mateen, CEO of Project U, we did a lot. I mean, and this is again a very quick note to people who are coming to their careers. Don't underestimate the experience and the value of experience you gain by working at a startup. People always want to go for the big dogs, Google, Facebook, FANG, they call them FANG. Now it's Meta, so the F is not really there. But people always romanticize that. And obviously there's merit to the benefits of working in those companies, but never underestimate the experience you gain by working in a startup. You have to roll up your sleeves and you're involved in everything, and you build resilience and you build courage to take risks. Fantastic experience working at a startup, right? And there's a time and place for everything. There are times when a big company is better for you and your circumstances than a small company that brings the uncertainty and
So Jamal, let me ask you, what were you doing exactly at Project U?
Okay. I started off as a facilitator. So facilitator meaning I would go and deliver these sessions. These sessions would be a combination of two things: social and emotional learning and project-based learning. Social and emotional learning would be developed based on skills frameworks that we've identified based on studies, based on research, that are optimal for career progression. Right. So I'd go into these classrooms because we were working primarily with schools, which we believed needed to be at the forefront of this shift in education. We worked with schools, we worked with graduates as well to bridge that gap that I've been talking about between education and the real world. We worked with governments and we worked with different stakeholders who are all very much enthusiastic about this change and want to see this change happen because it's quite important. It's quite urgent, I would say. So I started off delivering sessions. I went on to project management. I went on to spearheading programs, designing programs and curriculums. I went on to, business development. I was across all aspects of it. And right till the end, I was doing facilitation, right? Abdul Mateen, he liked the way I facilitated based on the public speaking experience and all that. I'll be honest with you. I started off enjoying facilitation, over time, I evolved to kind of hate it. Not hate it because I hate interacting with the students. I loved interacting with the students. I loved the impact I had on the students. I loved the fact that I would be able to help these students, but it was just exhausting. It was exhausting. For me, it was an impediment to development in other areas, like learning, like reading, like strategy, relationships, stakeholder relationships, things that I enjoyed and that energized me. So I slowly phased away from facilitation during the early stages of my tenure at Project U towards project management, strategy, partnerships, stakeholder management, all very beneficial, right? Now, there came to a point where I realized I've been sort of a deep generalist across my time here at Project U. I've tapped into different things. I've been across different things. Not a deep generalist, a generalist. I've been a generalist at Project U. I've done everything. I've done many things. I felt like I wanted to dive deeper into a specific area, specific mawdu', right? And for me, it was less about it being AI or anything else, but it was more about it being specialization, and a specialization in a highly technical area, in a highly technical industry, simply because of one thing: meta learning, right? For me, the idea was meta learning. What I mean by meta learning is, you've heard of metadata. Metadata is basically data about data, right? So if you have a list of PDFs, it's the PDF name, the file, the date created, date modified. All of that is metadata, not the actual data itself. Meta learning is the ability, from what I understand, based on the things that I've read and watched, meta learning is the ability to learn more and learn faster and learn better, right? It's the ability to learn rapidly, right? So for me, it was less about the specific industry of AI, which I'm enjoying thoroughly, by the way, and I've learned so much about, and I feel like I might be developing like a passion towards as well. It was less about the industry, more about the meta learning and the ability or the experience of throwing myself in the deep end, throwing myself in a technical deep end where I'm just bogged down with technicalities and details, and I have to be extremely detail oriented. There are technical giants around me, extremely competent people, people like my fellow guest on your show, your former guest, Hamza Halabi, right? I'm sure Hamza Halabi, despite me being in AI, I'm sure he'll be able to run circles around me when it comes to the intricacies of AI and things like agent co and tracing, lang fuse, and all these extremely technical terms and evaluations, observability, and all these things. He'll be able to run circles around me. So I'm not saying that I'm an expert. I'm not saying that I'm an expert in AI. What I am saying is that I have a passion to develop some sort of to become a deep generalist. A deep generalist is basically your expertise is deep, not the depth to a point where you'd be considered an expert, but deep enough to hold your own in a project environment, right? And that was my my objective, right? The second objective was, after having experienced the whole chaos of a startup, which, as I said, it's extremely beneficial to anyone, especially young people who can handle the stress, who don't have health issues, who have the energy. Very important. After having done that, I wanted to move to a more structured environment, a big company, right? With structured, established systems that I could learn from, right? And now I'm seeing so many things I'm witnessing so many things in the company I'm working with currently, which is a data analytics company in the energy industry called Wood Mackenzie in Scotland here, based in Edinburgh here. I've witnessed so many things that I could extrapolate and implement into a startup, whether that be Project U or my own startup or anyone's startup. There's so many things you can take, set up systems, right? And retrofit them into a startup such that they make that startup X their productivity. And for me, that was the biggest decision. And that's how I ended up right where I am right now. That's how I ended up right where I am.
Remember, circling back again to that LinkedIn post where you shared that you took that decision and making that move, you were already in the trenches 2-3 years back, already wrapping your head around AI related terms, AI generally, what's this whole thing about, and how could you help out, and whether it suits you or not, and so on and so forth. Then you decided to move on from Project Q or from the education sector because you felt you wanted a more structured environment. Can I put it that way? You
Yes.
felt this is the time to learn something different. And I liked your term when you said you want to become what's it called again?
Generalist.
Yeah, I like that. A deep generalist, where you want to be specified into a more technical ambience, and surrounding yourself with technical giants, just like you said. What was pushing you besides that?
You mean pushing me to make the move, or pushing me after I got into the
No, pushing you to make the move.
So those two things, I would say, are the main things. It was also a change in environment. I love the Middle East. I love Dubai. I love Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. I love those countries. I very much align with them in terms of the values. I love the people there. The food, unbeatable. Halal especially. But I wanted a bit of a change in environment. And I think sometimes you just need to change your environment in order to learn and in order to kind of really grow. And that's what I've experienced throughout my life, right? from India to what's it called, Kuwait to Malaysia to Dubai to Malaysia, then back to Dubai, now in Scotland, and I've learned so much from that. And I really wanted that, and I advise people, especially when they're young, to take those risks.
Why?
Risks.
Why the jump to
Sorry.
AI? Why the jump to AI? Why not engineering or mechanical engineering or whatever?
Okay.
Why not other any other field?
Okay, great. So now this is a very key detail, right? When I was working at the startup, I took what I enjoyed, I listed out the things I enjoyed, and I essentially evaluated what role generally across the world, across industries, industry agnostic, what role fits with these things that I've enjoyed doing in my work, in my time at the startup, right? And I can do that because I tried so much, right? People who get into one company and are doing one task repetitively, they might be getting paid a lot of money. They haven't tried these things. They haven't dipped their toes into the waters of these different things. I did by working at a startup, and I was able to filter out the things that I was good at and the things I enjoyed, and the things I enjoyed but were not good at, and the things that I enjoyed and the things that I was bad at but I was good at but didn't enjoy, right? Like for example, facilitation, public speaking, right? I was very good at it. Still am. I'd like to think I still am. I didn't enjoy it though. I enjoyed it at a point in my life, at a point in my career. I don't enjoy it now, right? I don't enjoy it now. I enjoy conversations like this, but I don't enjoy actually going and speaking in public. It's not my passion, right? So I learned that by experiencing, right? So what I listed out, basically, all the factors that I listed down, the things I enjoyed, amounted to one type of career, and that was a career in product management, right? So product management is basically, being a product manager means that you sit specifically when it comes to technology, you are basically sitting at the intersection between the developers, the data scientists, the designers, the people who design the system or design the app or the website or whatever it is, the stakeholders, the business stakeholders, senior management, your customers. You're at that intersection. You're literally right at the middle there, and you have to make sure you craftfully mitigate that, making sure that all stakeholders are aligned, making sure that everyone understands the vision, making sure that everyone is happy, making sure that making sure you serve that ecosphere cohesively. And I enjoyed that. I did it a bit in Project U. I enjoyed it, and I decided, okay, I have these two reasons. I want to become a deep generalist. I want to experience a large company and the systems that a large company brings. What do I do that in? What industry? What area? And for me, the product management made the most sense. So the role I applied for happened to be a product management in AI, in specifically the central AI team of the company.
So you're a product manager, or you're a product
analyst, yeah, is my technical title, but yeah, basically the work of product management, yeah.
Right, so you're a product analyst at Wood and Mackenzie, right? If I'm not
Wood
mistaken.
Mackenzie, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Wood Mackenzie. And it happens to be in the central AI atmosphere, or in the AI complex in the company.
Yes.
Okay, so
AI, that's another whole ball game.
Right. So the move.
I was listening to a bit of your conversation with Hamza yesterday, and there's a lot of merit to what he's saying in terms of, and what you were saying about creativity, about the use of AI. Although to not read your an email sent to you by AI, I mean, come on, you're a bit mean. Just give it some thought. At least try and identify whether they prompted the AI properly.
Well, yeah, there you go. I'd agree with that. In fact, maybe we should do another episode. The two of us, the three of us. Sorry. Yeah. Anyways, as I was saying, so the move now that I understand a lot more, it wasn't into AI, it was into product management. It just happens that both met.
Yeah.
This is my question to you. A lot of people nowadays have this crazy initiative and the risks to jump into anything AI related. It's the new big thing. It's the shiny thing. It's where it is. And that's one of the main reasons I wanted to ask you as well. Was money a factor for you to make the move as well? I would really appreciate your honest answer. Was money the factor as well? Or was it primarily what you feel you need to do more of because that's what your passion is and what have you? So these are two questions.
Sorry. Yeah, got it. So the first part, was money a factor? And the second part, just remind me, was it based on passion?
So the second part was AI right now is becoming the hot topic, is already the hot topic. And a lot of youths or even fresh or junior to senior graduates are thinking of, hey, I'm going to jump on the bandwagon because that's where the investments are, and I want to be this, and that. And hey, it doesn't require a university degree, so I'll just jump into Coursera, jump into Udemy, call my AI geeks, and hey guys, what courses should I do? And I'll follow through and probably get
Yeah.
paid dollars.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point, and a lot to be said about that. Although, disclaimer, I'm not the expert. I'm trying to emulate what I read and what I've been exposed to. In no way am I an expert. Don't be fooled by my Dunning-Kruger method of talking where I seem confident. There's not much of depth there. I'm building it as we go. I'm digging it deeper and deeper every day, alhamdulillah. But yeah, I'm far from the experts. I'd just like to point that out. Money was a factor. I mean, simply because of the notion that generally roles in tech pay well. Roles in tech generally pay well. At least here, I'm not sure too much about the East, but in the West, roles in technology, product management is a well-paying industry. AI, I don't know whether AI impacts the pay scale of technology roles. I don't know whether AI impacts the pay scale. Maybe it does because of the hype. Maybe it does because of the demand. But I don't know whether AI was. I didn't think to myself, oh, okay, AI, I'll get a lot of money. AI. No, I didn't think to myself like that at all. Tech in general pays well over here in this part of the world. Product management, software development, data scientists, data science, they pay well. Tech pays well. So money was definitely a factor, like it is for most people, right? You don't want to be working. You want to work in an industry that pays well. You want to live meaningfully with your family. You want to be able to afford things in life, and that's completely normal, and that there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was the driving factor for me. Like, oh my God, I need this amount. And if I had gotten a different amount from a different industry outside of product management, I'd go for that because for me, I'm building career equity, right? I'm building expertise. I'm building deep generalism, and jumping too much hinders that. Jumping too much hinders that. Albeit that you can make the case that nowadays there are certain set of baseline skills that allows you to be, that allows you to transcend career. And that's a testament. Our CEO, the CEO of Wood Mackenzie, is a testament to that. He's the CEO. He was extremely successful in the insurance industry before coming to Wood Mackenzie, which is an energy-driven data analytics company. This is the meeting point of two extremely complicated industries, right? It's no small feat. You have energy and you have AI and technology, right? And you're at the intersection of those two industries, which is layers and layers of complexity, right? So again, there are a set of baseline skills, but jumping too much, you can make an argument that jumping too much from one place to another, especially based on pay, simply based on how much money you're going to make, I don't know if that's the best idea, right? Not everything's about money. Now, on the impact of AI and companies kind of rushing to implement AI into their workflow, into their company, I can't speak to the long-term efficiency of this, although I can bring up one point, and I just want to zoom out with you a bit, Abdurrahman, because I know with Hamza, the conversation was a lot about kind of personal growth and personal development and creativity and personal capacity and how AI is impeding that. But I want to zoom out because I want to focus on a more kind of macroeconomic phenomena that could happen with AI, right? So let's just kind of break this down. With AI right now, what companies are doing, what a lot of companies are doing, and we've seen the numbers right now, the layoff surges have gone into a vertical, right? Like, companies laying off crazy amounts of people, right? The implication is that this is less of a kind of a market volatility or reactiveness to unemployment. It's more of a structural change, right? So companies are using AI to cut costs, right? Cutting costs essentially comes through trimming out middle management, potentially making junior level and entry level roles obsolete, right? I no longer need an associate as a senior legal partner or a senior legal advisor. I no longer need a team of associates because I drop my documents into ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity, and I extract what I need to extract from these documents. I don't need them scanning through it and me paying them a wage and paying for health insurance and this and that. Short term, it's great. Short term, it's the economical decision, in my opinion, right? You're saving costs, you're cutting costs, you're improving profitability. The concern is what happens in the long term, right? Basically, for the history of humankind, like thousands of years, how have people learned? The primary methodology of learning for thousands of years has been a relationship between people, right? A novice expert relationship where someone who is kind of not really, he's new, he's at the edge of his capability, meet someone who's very well capable, an expert, someone who's done it 1,000 times and can coach you through that process. Coaching, by the way, a very important skill to be spoken about at some point. So humankind has predominantly learned through this methodology, not through taking exams, not through sitting through and memorizing textbooks, right? By actually doing things, right? And doing things under mentorship, under guidance. AI is breaking that relationship. So where you had like a pyramid structure of an organization where the bottom layer learns from the top layer, which learns from the top layer, which eventually learns all the nuances and all the skills that you need to progress. AI is cutting that. It's making a more of a diamond shape, right? So the middle management you have, and then at the bottom, we don't need too many graduates because graduates, number one, education doesn't do much for them. They're not ready. We have to train them. When we train them, other companies, our competitors come and take them. Why do we need graduates, right? AI does it much better, right? AI doesn't complain. AI doesn't need time off and vacation and sick leave. AI doesn't need health insurance, right? AI doesn't, you don't have to worry about the emotions of AI. This is the line of thinking, right? I'm not saying it's the right line of thinking. This is the line of thinking. So essentially what happens is you're breaking that bond of learning or the methodology of learning that has been going on for thousands of years, right? So now when that diamond-shaped organizational structure, when people move on, people go progress or retire, you're going to need people to take over their place, right? Take their place. You're going to need people to step in. How can people, the next generation, step in when they haven't had that novice expert bond that has helped them learn and grow, right? How do people take over? Because you have three different levels of skills generally in companies across industries. There's the bottom, the baseline level, right? The analyst, the associate, gathering data, collecting data, simulating data, writing reports, things that AI is obviously taken over to a great extent and taking more and more over. Then we have the middle layer, people who will who will form recommendations, synthesize strategy and direction for teams, right? Efficiency, things like that. You see AI taking over that as well with agents and with the capability of these models. They're taking over that middle layer as well, right? It's becoming dangerous. So now the bottom layer is gone. The middle layer is half gone. Now let's talk about the top layer. The top layer, I believe, in my experience, the top layer is very well protected simply because C-level executives, they're not on their computers programming and developing and writing code and creating whatever it is. They're not doing that, right? They're maintaining relationships. They're making nuanced emotional decisions based on customer sentiment. They are going for conferences, engaging with people, interacting with customers, selling products, right? They're steering the organization. These things, AI, in my opinion, at least from what I've seen, is light years ahead of taking over. In fact, you could make a strong case to the fact that AI will never take over these things, ever, right? AI will never, ever be able to replace the relationship that I have with you. AI will never be able to replace a relationship that you have with your subordinate or with your employees. Never. I would say that the top layer of the upper layer or the high level, the C-suite, the executive level of companies, especially big companies, are well protected in that sense. Not so much the junior level, which focuses on mundane, repetitive tasks. But again, we're breaking the bond that allows the junior level to take over that expert level, the novice to become the CEO, right? The graduate. I was just looking at the CEO of Nike, and he's been at Nike for 40, 50 years. He started as an intern, and he slowly progressed. And one step at a time, he climbed that ladder, and now he's the CEO of Nike, right? Through that process, to get to where you are, you would have had to go through layers of hierarchy, layers of employees, of managers, of directors, of vice presidents, of senior vice presidents, of executive vice presidents, of chief executive officers to get to the point where you can actually lead a company, right? And you would have learned an unfathomable amount through that process. What AI is doing right now is it's eliminating that bottom layer. So a few years' time, and this could have a short-term and a long-term implication, a few years' time, when you realize that you don't have the talent to take over the C-level, you don't have the talent to take over, vice presidents and high-level directors who are good with relationships, who are good with selling, who are good with customer communication, right? Who are good with making decisions when the data isn't clear, right? When the data when the data is idiosyncratic. That requires a craft and a skill and some nuance. It requires so much of complexity that AI cannot replace. AI is replacing the easy stuff. And yes, short term, you're cutting costs. And it makes sense, right? You think your investors are pulling hard for their returns. They're like, yeah, we want to streamline the business. We want to eliminate costs. We want to fire people. Make sure AI takes over this, cut costs, all of that. Cool, understandable, right? Profits matter. But think about the next decade, as in when you're ready to, when you are as a CEO, you're ready to retire or move on with life, and someone needs to take your place. Where do you draw that talent pool from? And hiring is becoming more and more difficult, right? It's becoming significantly more difficult to ascertain talent because, again, coming back to education, it doesn't fulfill the needs of industries today. It doesn't, and that's probably my biggest contention.
And Jamaal, like seriously, thank you for the laydown you just did, because it makes a lot of sense to me how your perspective on AI and the way you exemplified it through the hierarchy in any organization and the gap that we're slowly increasing the distance off away or putting apart from each other is scary, dangerous, but also I can easily assume how debatable this topic is with another person whom would be very much or would be very much having a huge vested interest into the whole idea in and of itself. And this takes me to a very important point, given what you said regarding the gap that's slowly growing. From your perspective, what's the healthy way to build a world where AI exists while still the handover from a human capital perspective is still intact?
Uh, I don't have the answer to that, to be completely honest with you. I know I've been highlighting all the problems with no solutions. Okay, honestly, from a first principles point of view, I think it foundationally starts with companies re-engineering the workflow such that there is cohesion between human labor, human impact, and technological tools. And that's definitely the case. You definitely need people. A lot of times you need people to actually be able to operate some of these tools, right? Oftentimes that even despite the fact that the tool may replace the people. And while we are moving into a more kind of agentic framework of AI, you will still need, I would feel in AI, we talk about this concept of human in the loop. Human in the loop is basically at some point of the workflow, the human touches base with the workflow to make sure that it's accurate, to make sure that it's vetted, to make sure that it's auditable, verifiable, right? I think moving forward, and I don't know what this looks like. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't know what this looks like. I'm no expert. I think moving forward, companies and organizations rearranging their workflow or re-engineering their workflow to be able to bring those two things together, people and tools. But this, I want to give a message to the people, right? To the people watching this and to people in general. You need to be digitally
Literate.
compatible. Sorry, that's the exact word I was looking for. You need to have digital literacy. You absolutely need to have digital literacy. And this brings me back to the concept of meta learning, the ability to learn different topics and quickly. You need to be able to do that. Because right now it's AI, but tomorrow it'll be something else. And you don't want to be left behind, right? And I know it's human nature to be kind of adverse to change and reprehensive of change. But just embrace it, and you will learn very quickly that it's not as difficult. It's not as difficult as you thought, right? It's not as, oh my God, I can't do this as you. It's not. It's not. It's not. It's much easier than you thought, and you're able to keep up, right? You're able to maintain that whole skill.
Jamaal, one more question I've had lined up for you. The shift from the education sector to product analysis or be a product management generally, how difficult was that, given that you're applying to a top tier company where you would stand in the competition pool on a very weak footing, but at the very same time, you still manage your way through, given that you're already coming from a completely different industry. So what did you do that you could pass down to people who are right at the brink of taking a decision like yourself?
I I would say that so throughout my time at Project U, working with students, we focused on a skills map, right? This skills map, and it was actually a very interesting article published by McKinsey and Company, extremely detailed, extensive. I'll send it to you as well. It's worth a read. And
Please.
basically, they outlined a digital footprint to sustaining as a work person in the future world of work, right? So essentially, they broke it down into kind of granular um, skills, you could say, that they call deltas, distinct elements of talent. I actually had the pleasure of meeting one of the gentlemen who actually wrote this report, Dr. Jog Schubert, senior partner at McKinsey, he was telling me while they're not entirely mutually exclusive, but they're collectively exhaustive, right? They collectively cover the primary first principle skills, deltas, as you call them, distinct elements of talent that are needed for success in the world of work. And they were broken down into four broad categories, right? The first one is self-leadership, interpersonal, digital, and cognitive, right? And these four categories, for me, spending so much of time telling students about these categories, trying to this research into physical modules or curriculum modules for these students, right? Communication, digital literacy, project-based learning, adaptability. How do you teach these things? You can't teach these things. I learned this very quickly, actually, at Project U. And I tried my best to say, I'll give you examples, like when you and your colleague are here and you're doing this, what would you do? A, B, C, D. What would you can try your best to educationalize it in the traditional form of education, but you can't. The only way to learn these things is through immersion. The only way to learn these skills is by putting yourself in that environment, which I was doing simply by working at a startup.
Wow.
Right. So these skills that I was trying so hard to materialize into a course and into curriculums and design into a framework for education to teach students, right, which I learned very quickly was not very productive. I was, by the very aspect of working at that company, I was developing myself. So alhamdulillah, I mean, none of it is from me. It's all from God. It's all by his blessings and his mercy. Again, I know nothing. I'm no one, right? But for me, it was being exposed to that. You build versatility, you build resilience, you build the ability to take those skills to different areas. And that's what I communicated in my interview process, which was, I mean, it wasn't a small process, right? It was a 5-step procedure, the company that I got into, right? So there was an initial interview, then with the product manager, then with the product manager and the director, then with the vice president, then a final check-in call for a cultural fit. So there were multiple steps. And for me, the biggest thing was being able to convince my manager, who I've learned so much from in the course of 11 months, to convince him that I've learned these skills. They're not specialized. They're not technical. They're not industry specific to energy or AI or data science or data analytics. They're not specific at all, but they are applicable. They're transferable. And convincing him of that, along with, very important, the right attitude, is very important, right? You know, this study, by the way, that I'm talking about, one of the deltas of the 56 deltas is humility. And you know what they found in the study? That there was a correlation between education and humility, a negative correlation between education and humility, meaning the more educated someone was, the less humble they are. And guess what happens when the less humble you are? The less open you are to learning. It's a simple fact. The less humility you have in any aspect of life, even in aspects you may think you're an expert in. I certainly don't think there's much that I'm an expert in, except maybe food. And I'll fight people who say otherwise. Still not. I love cooking though. I'm not an expert in any area, but the humility and the openness to learn is what you need to have. And education, based on this, this empirical study, education leads to less humility. Right. So another message is quickly to the traditionals out there, the people who are believe in this hegemonic system of education and who think that, I'm all that because I got a bachelor's, I'm all that because I got a master's, I'm all that because I got a PhD. Right. Step down a bit. Just push the brakes on that mindset. I'm not saying you're not accomplished. I'm not saying your degree wasn't difficult. I'm not saying that you don't have knowledge. You might have a lot of knowledge, but with where we are right now, knowledge is no longer something difficult to grasp. Your teacher in the classroom is no longer the be-all, end-all of the right answer. Right? They don't have a monopoly on the truth anymore. No one does. But these systems are coming out to be very efficient. Like Perplexity, you have Gemini, you have ChatGPT, and all these systems are being trained by the day in Herculean amounts of data, and they are outperforming people by far in many areas. So to think that you have a degree and therefore you can claim a monopoly on the truth, and that you can, and now for some reason you are somewhat better than someone without a degree. No way. Absolutely not.
Jamaal, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. I am probably the proudest friend alive to see the progress, and not just, by the way, from the looks of it. In fact, it's from the communication behind it. The person
that's where you're coming from. That's you. I know that's you. I know that will always make you more proud, wouldn't it? Ladies and gentlemen, just to set the record straight, This man here, right here, has had a significant impact on my ability to effectively communicate. Right, he was my coach in university. He coached me through the art of public speaking. I know back then we would brand it as we would brand it of professional development. I would, however, disagree with that. I would now, in hindsight, after actually learning what professional development looks like specifically for the workplace and going through these studies and going through my experience, I would make a distinction that what we did there was purely public speaking, but it was immensely beneficial to me in my career, in many aspects of my life. So I would, I would definitely say hats off to you, my friend.
You guys are normal. Like, seriously, thank you. And it's the least, I think it was all bestowed upon us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I believe. It's just
Absolutely.
Allah put the barakah in the relationship, and
Absolutely.
somehow, some way worked out. It wasn't because someone was too good at something or too weak at something. It was just, the reconciliation between people who want to be better. And
Absolutely.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put us in each other's journeys to play a certain role, and then off you go to where you're going to continue your journey. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
the person I'm talking to you today, from an intellectual perspective, that was quite an intellectual conversation. Usually, my primary job in this podcast is to question my guest and to actively listen. I believe I did the latter. I did a lot of active listening, not because I hated it or I don't want to interrupt you. It's because I actually was taking something away.
Alhamdulillah.
So everybody listening there's definitely going to be clips, shorter clips passed down and uploaded to get people understand who this gentleman is and what he has been through. And I believe it would truly resonate with a lot of people, because that story at this very specific time we're seeing happen quite frequently, but on different wavelengths. And hence, I think the least we could do is probably share our experiences. Maybe one person takes one sentence out. I guess that's a job well done. My friend, thank you so much. And
Thank you
Jazakallah
very much.
for your time.
Wajazak, wajazak. It's been a very, very interesting conversation. I would very much like to do more listening the next time we converse. More listening
So,
than speaking, inshallah. I've come to not like speaking as much as I once did, despite I still fall into the habit of doing it a bit too much nowadays. I certainly like the active listening way more than I like speaking, but I definitely enjoyed this conversation, and I would love to be back for more. Maybe we can switch the gears a bit and um, talk about you. Uh, Talk about different things. Talk about how the last time we were talking about public speaking, and we had to kind of emulate what we learned.
that man completely changed. I promise.
Okay, man, those are good days, man.
Yeah, those were really good days. SubhanAllah. I'm glad it was one of the main reasons we got to know each other, seriously. And the rest of the crew, we once worked together. So once again, Jamal, thank you so much. And I really love the idea. Let's revisit that. And you never know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us build again in the future.
I mean,
Inshallah.
inshallah, inshallah.
You take care of yourself, my friend. Assalamu
Take
alaikum.
care, take care of yourself. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.